Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Estate Connection. Come on in and let's have a good time. Come on in. We're gonna get started on the Real Estate Connection today. Woo!
Time now for The Real Estate Connection with Stephen Theard, a realtor and certified probate and real estate specialist. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or a seasoned investor looking to downsize, move up, or refinance, this program is for you.
A house in the middle of a street. Something tells you that you've got to in the middle of
From probate sales to landscape design to home repairs and maintenance, this is your weekly look into all things real estate. Now your host for the Real Estate Connection, Stephen Theard.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Real Estate Connection with your radio realtor, Stephen Theard. All right. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me, everyone. A big fat round of applause for everybody who made it in today. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's for you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Hey, we're live on YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook. If you're on any of those platforms, give me a shout out. Tell me what's up. I'd be happy. I'd love to hear from you. That's what happens when you're kind of dyslexic. Sorry, when you kind of have a little bit of ADD and you're thinking two thoughts at the same time and it comes out as a mixed word. I don't know if any of you guys, anybody else out there struggles with that, but definitely for me, as my brain gets going faster than my mouth can keep up with. But anyway, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're having a good week. It's starting to feel a little bit like fall in the morning. Thank God, right? Especially for all those fires. Hey, Julie Whalen. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. I might pop that on the screen. There you go. Hey, Julie. Welcome to the show. Anyway, it's getting a little foggy out there, and so hopefully that'll help as we have these offshore winds and the fog kicking up with any of the fires that are still burning in Northern California. And prayers go out to all the people in Cancun, Mexico, who got hit by Hurricane Delta last night with that category. It was a category 4, but I think it dropped down to a category 2 or 3. But there were lots of people on vacation, enjoying themselves, and had to shelter and kind of take a break from their relaxing and communicating with loved ones to let them know that they're safe. So thank God that most people are okay and there's not that much damage, but our prayers are with you. And with that being said, I'm going to set the timer for the first part of today's show. We're going to be talking about property taxes in the state of California, how they work, get a background on how it's calculated with Prop 13, and then we're going to segue into Proposition 19 and talk about what's going on there as far as that ballot, as far as that proposition that's coming on the ballot to be voted on in November, which is less than 30 days away. Can you believe it? We're coming up on an election in less than 30 days. So, dude, hopefully all the world will calm down after that. But with that being said, I think we're just going to jump into the program in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Real Estate Connection with your radio realtor, Stephen Theard. Hey, thanks for joining me today. We're going to jump right on into this show and start talking about what's happening in our world in less than 30 days. That's right. We're coming up on an election, in less than 30 days. And there are multiple propositions on the ballot in California. There are at least three propositions that relate to housing in the state. Two of those have a direct effect on Proposition 13. The first proposition, if passed, changes Proposition 13 as it relates to commercial real estate. I'm not sure if we'll get into that in today's show, but you will learn in today's show about another proposition for sure. The second proposition is Proposition 19, which changes some of Proposition 13 from a residential perspective. So in the first segment, you will hear or learn or going to get a better understanding by hearing a review of Proposition 13 and how it currently affects property taxes now in the state of California. In the second segment of today's show, you will learn how Proposition 19 changes the landscape of property tax taxation in the state of California. So, if you are new to the show and you're just joining me and you've never heard the Real Estate Connection before and you're thinking to yourself, this is some really good, useful information already, send me an email right now at info@realestateconnectionradio.com. That's info@realestateconnectionradio.com with your name and email address. I'll send you a link to my podcasts, which you can find the Real Estate Connection on Podbean and Apple Podcasts. Just search in the search bar the Real Estate Connection, either at Podbean or Apple Podcasts. You can find me there. I'll send you a link, or better yet, I'll add you to my podcast distribution list so that you do not have to miss any past or future content. All right, so credit for today's show goes to me. So if you're I did a bunch of research and reading into how Proposition 13 works, how it came into play, and how it currently affects how we pay property taxes on real estate in the state of California. And then I did research on Proposition 19 so I would be able to bring you information on how it will be changed moving forward should the ballot proposition pass in November. So here's some quick background for you in regards to how property taxes or taxation works on property in the United States as a whole. The United States and its individual states adopted the allodial system of ownership. Even though the allodial system provided for the private ownership of property, inclusive of a bundle of rights, the government did not give up all of its rights. And can you guess what one of those rights is that the government did not give up? You guessed correctly. The government did not give up its rights to tax or assess property, even though it's owned privately by citizens of the United States of America, or in some instances in foreign investors who can come in and buy residential real estate or commercial real estate within our country's boundaries. So that's the first thing, which I thought was very interesting because given that we own our property and it's private, I was like, how is a government even able to tax us? Well, this explains it. So if you ever had any questions about it, now you know. All right, so the government retained its right to tax real property to support and fund governmental functions. So this is why the state of California can impose taxes on property you own in the state. Now, how does the system work? Which is where we get into Proposition 13 and understanding the nuts and bolts of California's ability to tax residential real estate. So if you have any questions about your specific situation in regards to maybe things you may be doing with your property in the future, whether that's an investment property or a primary residence, feel free to reach out and call me 408-472-0817. I'd like to thank Romy, who reached out last week. I had a nice meeting with him up the peninsula near San Francisco, and we're gonna get his condo on the market pretty soon here. We're working on some things. So he's taking advantage of the radio realtor, Stephen Theard, and you can too. Call me right now at 408-472-0817. Again, 408-472-0817. Call me. Let's discuss your specific situation and see which direction you want to head and get your goals accomplished. All right, now back to California and their method of taxing real property. Real property meaning real estate, whether it's commercial or residential. Property taxes in California are assessed under a system referred to as ad valorem. So I'm going to say that again. Property taxes in California are assessed under a system referred to as ad valorem, which is a Latin term which means according to value. This means that each individual property will be assessed by the county assessor. And for Santa Clara County, that's Larry Stone. And every time he's introduced, every time I've seen him speak in person, every time you introduce Larry Stone, you always get a round of boo, which he absolutely loves because he understands that he's the tax man. So anyway, the county assessor for Santa Clara County is Larry Stone, and the property will be assessed by the county assessor at its full cash value. Okay, so that explains the mechanism for which California uses to tax property that is owned either for commercial purposes or for residential purposes. The county finds out or determines the cash value of the asset that you own in real estate, and then assesses a tax rate based on that value. So there were problems and issues with this approach that started rearing its ugly head in the 1970s. And based on these issues, we had a major shift in change in the landscape of how California assesses real estate based on value. And this was through Howard Jarvis and Mr. Gann, who came up with this initiative called Proposition 13. Now, we're heading up on a hard break, and we're going to get into more details of how this all came about and how it works today. But if you just joined the show and you've missed any of today's content relating to how property taxes work in the state of California, send me an email right now at info@realestateconnectionradio.com. That's INFO at realestateconnectionradio.com with your name and email address, and I'll send you a link to today's show and sign you up for my podcast distribution list. And if you're looking to work with a knowledgeable real estate professional such as myself, Stephen Theard, your radio realtor, give me a call at 408-472-0817. Again, 408-472-0817. And with that, we'll see you at the other side of the commercial break. All right, we're into it now, people. Here we go. We're talking about taxes today. And one of those taxes that we pay in the United States are property taxes. Okay, so if you're on YouTube, hey, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. If you're on Periscope, go ahead and hit the stars, those little hearts, and share out with all on other social media platforms. And if you're on Facebook, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate my Facebook audience. Go ahead and hit that like and share button with all your friends, as they will be learning about property taxes in the state of California and how they work, and where Proposition 13 came from and how it currently affects the way we pay property taxes here in the state. And without any further ado, we will start our program back again in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Real Estate Connection with your radio realtor, Stephen Theard. Hey, thank you for joining me today as we are discussing and you are learning about property taxes in the state of California. Now, you may be thinking, Stephen, I don't own a house, I rent. How does this pertain to me? Well, property taxes are going to be paid by the owner. If you're renting a property, more than likely those property tax costs are being passed down to you in your rental payments. So it is important to understand the system because if a ballot measure comes up that increases property taxes and you vote for it, even though you're thinking it really doesn't affect me because I do not own a home, rest assured, eventually all of it rolls downhill and it will arrive at your doorstep somehow, some way. Because those who are landlords or property owners will seek to recoup the increase in the property taxes they are remitting to the state of California by rent increases that eventually arrive at your front door. I heard a very wise man say that businesses don't pay taxes. They can write checks for taxes, but they generally don't pay them because businesses always pass down the cost of doing business to the consumer. So the more taxes that businesses pay, the higher the cost of goods and services go up for the consumer. So that's just a little tidbit of wise advice that I'm passing along to you that I received from somebody else. So let's jump back in to the subject of property taxes and how Proposition 13 operates in the state of California. In the 1970s, property values were going up at a very fast pace. Individuals on fixed incomes could not keep up with the increase in property taxes and were being taxed out of their homes. And you ask, Stephen, how does that happen? Well, when you have an ad valorem tax, which means according to value, the value of the homes was market value. So as the market value of houses steadily increased over time and sometimes rapidly, as you well know, as you've seen in Santa Clara County, Northern California, and the state of California, you can go through a period of time when the value of a home will jump $50 to $100,000 in a year's time. Then you have taxes that are being assessed based on market value. If you're on a fixed income and your house is going up in value and you can't keep up with the taxes, eventually you will be forced to sell. So this became a major issue back in 1978. Proposition 13 was proposed in 1978 to solve this issue. Proposition 13 was passed by almost 70% of the voters in the state. So that's a very strong indication that the people of the state of California were seeking relief. Proposition 13, which you may not know, now governs property assessments and taxation in the state of California. It was a constitutional amendment that was written into the state constitution, which forever from that point forward changed how taxes were imposed on real estate within our state. So once Proposition 13 passed, property assessments for the 1978 to 79 fiscal year were required to be rolled back to 1975, 1976 values, establishing the concept of a base year value in California. Now, this was a major transition, a major monumental change in how property taxes were assessed within the taxing jurisdiction of California. No longer were they taxing based on the value or the current market value or cash value of a home. Because you've got to think, cash value of the home is whatever somebody is willing to write a check for. So if you bought a house, say back in the 70s for let's say, and I'm guessing here, so forgive me, so maybe $95,000 or $100,000, $150,000, and in 2 years it doubled. You're all of a sudden paying double the taxes because the value of your home has gone up exponentially in a very short period of time. So, what this did was it set in stone a base year to work off of. And from that point moving forward, whatever that base year was in 1975 or 76, it stayed fixed. And then property taxes were assessed on that base year, and there was a limit imposed on how quickly the value of that base year could go up over time. Okay, I know this is deep and there's a lot to be covered here, but it's really important that you understand how property taxes work currently before you make decisions on what should be changed in the system if you do not understand what's going on today. So, if you've just joined me in today's show and you're wondering what you've missed, send me an email right now at info@realestateconnectionradio.com. That's info at realestateconnectionradio.com with your name and your email address, and I would be happy to send you a link of today's show or just add you to my podcast distribution list. You can find the Real Estate Connection on Apple Podcasts and Podbean. So again, if you go online to Apple Podcasts or through your app on your phone and search the Real Estate Connection, you can find me, Stephen Theard, your radio realtor there, or on Podbean. So that's a lot to take in, but it's really important to understand because Prop 19 is looking to make changes to the current system. And I know a lot of people who don't understand the proposition, and if you don't understand, this will make it easier for you to grasp what's going on. So if, again, you're looking to make changes in your real estate situation and property taxes are an issue that you'd like to discuss, give me a call at 408-472-0817. Again, 408-472-0817. Whether you're buying a new property or selling the one that you have, there will be property tax implications in the decisions that you make, and you need to have the full picture behind what the effect of selling or buying in today's marketplace will have on your expenses or the costs related to property taxes. So call me 408-472-0817. Again, 408-472-0817. Okay, so once we had a base year established for a home. So for instance, if you bought your house again in 1975 for $100,000, that was your base year. The state property tax rate may not exceed 1% of the property's full cash value at its base year. So your base year value, if it was, for example, in 1975, $100,000, the tax rate for the state could only be up to 1%. An additional protection was added. Each year thereafter, the property's assessed value increases by 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is lower. So let me repeat that. Each year thereafter, the property's assessed value increases by 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is lower. So now you have a house with a base year of $100,000 in 1975, and say, for instance, the very next year, the true market value that somebody's willing to pay for that property is $200,000. Well, the county cannot assess you at $200,000 in the next year. The county can only go up a maximum of 2% of your base year to increase the value of that base year, or the cost of the rate of inflation, whichever is lower, which saves people from being property taxed right out of their homes, which is very important. It's a protection that's been in place since 1978, and now people are thinking about changing it. So you have to think about it. Would your parent or your grandparent be able to still maintain or hold on to their property that they love, that they've worked very hard to pay for or pay off, if the protections of Proposition 13 were taken away, via a ballot measure? So this is important that everyone understand how this works as far as this base year is concerned. Now we're coming up on a hard break. When we get back, we're going to talk about how property taxes work when you purchase a home today or buy a new home. So we'll see you on the other side of the break. Okay, we are rolling right along. We're going to keep moving on into today's show of understanding Proposition 13 and property taxes. And in our second segment, we're going to talk about Proposition 19 and what proposed changes to the property tax law are contained within that proposition. And you need to be informed before you vote. I know there are a lot of ballots that have already been mailed out. And so if you're at all wondering what's in Prop 19, and you want to make a decision for yourself and being informed, stick around. All right. Hey, on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. On Periscope, smash that share with all your followers and onto the social media platforms. I believe Periscope you can share onto Facebook now too. You can share on Facebook and you can share on Twitter. And then on Facebook, hit that thumbs up button and share with your friends. Appreciate your support. I really do. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are starting the next segment. Ready, go. Welcome back to the Real Estate Connection with your radio realtor, Stephen Theard. Hey, in our first segment, we're discussing how Proposition 13 or how property taxes currently work in the state of California. But in our second segment, we're going to discuss Proposition 19. We're going to get into the details of what is actually in the proposition, how it affects what, if it's passed, how it will change the landscape of property taxation within the state of California, how it will affect seniors, and how it will affect Proposition 13 and how it was built upon by the voters. So stay with me. You're not going to want to miss that content. It's very important, especially as we're coming up on an election in less than 30 days. And a lot of you already have received your ballots, and you may be wondering which direction to go on Prop 19. And this program will provide you with some detail. Hopefully you can understand the proposition better before you cast your deciding vote. So with that being said, if you've missed any part of today's show, send me an email right now at info@realestateconnectionradio.com. That's info@realestateconnectionradio.com with your name and email address, and I will add you to the podcast distribution list or send you a link to today's show, or you can just reach out and find me on Apple Podcasts. Look for the Real Estate Connection on Apple Podcasts or Podbean. Again, Podbean, the Real Estate Connection, and you can find past shows on there as well. So without any further ado, let's get back into how property taxes work in the state of California. So we were talking about the history of Prop 13 and how it established a base year value, which means you and your neighbor could own the same house of the same age and the general same condition and be paying completely different property tax dollar amounts depending on when you acquired the property. So if you're still in your property since 75 or 76, God bless you. You really have a low tax rate. But my guess is most people have sold their houses since the law of Prop 13 or the proposition was passed in our California state constitution was changed. So under the system, when real property is purchased, the county assessor assigns it an assessed value that is equal to its purchase price or acquisition value. So this is where the change comes into place. So a person who owned their property when Proposition 13 was originally passed and had a base year value sitting back in 1975 and 76 eventually sells their house, say in 1990. So if that house is sold in 1990, then it gets a new base year or new assessed value equal to the purchase price or the acquisition value. So generally speaking, both of those are the same. So for example, if a home is purchased in the year 2000 for $450,000, the acquisition cost is your base year. That's your base year value for property tax purposes. Property tax is 1% of the $450,000 acquisition cost annually. This means your tax would be $4,500 a year. Then you, of course, would divide that by 12 if you're making monthly payments to your mortgage, which is allowed. It's called, the word is escaping me right now. But basically, when you make a mortgage payment, you're going to be paying the mortgage servicer the principal, the interest on the loan, your property taxes, and insurance. The mortgage servicer collects it on a monthly basis, and then it pays your property taxes for you every 6 months, which is due in Santa Clara County. So it would, for the example that you just heard, if the acquisition value was $450,000 in the year 2000. Come on, Stephen, keep up, keep up. If the property tax value of the acquisition value was $450,000, and 1% of that is going to be your tax, that's $4,500 a year. And then again, if you're escrowing for those property taxes monthly through your mortgage servicer, you're going to be paying that on a monthly versus every six months, which then you would divide it in half. Okay, now how does new construction work? Okay, it's very similar. It's very similar to the same thing. When new construction occurs, it is reassessed at current market value as of the date of completion. This establishes a new base year value for the property's newly constructed improvements only. If construction is deemed new or substantially equivalent to new, the base year value for improvements is established entirely on the date of the construction completion. If construction is deemed an addition, the original base year value for improvements remains, and a new base year value on the date of the construction completion is added. So let's break this down. If you're basically building an entirely new house from the foundation up, at the end of the construction process, there's going to be an evaluation done on the value of the home as of the date of completion. That's going to be the base year value that you will be paying property taxes on new construction. So if you're buying new construction from a builder, they're going to assign a value by the purchase price that you're paying. It would be different if you're doing a project on your own and you've hired a contractor and an architect to design it. Then then there's going to be an assessed value based on the completion and all the materials and the cost that it took to build the property, and then what the appraiser says it would be the fair market value of the home as of the date of completion. If you're adding a room addition or anything like that, it will increase your property taxes because of the additional value once the additional space is completed on the date of completion as well. So that's something to keep in mind for all of you out there that are thinking about adding room to your home or increasing the functionality of your house by adding a bathroom or maybe even an accessory dwelling unit. If you have any questions about that give me a call at 408-472-0817. Again, 408-472-0817. Or if you're just looking to change geography, whether you're looking to stop renting and buy a new home for yourself and pay your own property taxes and not your landlord's, and have a fixed and guaranteed mortgage payment for the next 30 years and not have to worry about increases, rent increases, give me a call at 408-472-0817. Or if you're looking to cash out all of that hard-earned equity and maybe move into your dream home, whether you're downsizing because you're retiring or you're buying that executive style home that you've been saving for and collecting equity on, give me a call as well at 408-472-0817. Let's set up an appointment and discuss your specific situation and get you down the road to accomplishing your personal goals for real estate. Okay, so with that being said, you're wondering probably, Stephen, hey, you've been talking about this 1%, this 1%. Um, uh, my property taxes are higher than 1%, and you are correct. You are absolute correct. So we're talking about the state 1% rate, but there are voter approved debt rates that get added to your local property taxes as well. Now we're running up on another hard break. When we get back, we're going to get into how those voter approved um, uh, bond measures get added to your property taxes. And we're going to get into segment 2 on Proposition 19 and what is in it, so you can make an informed decision before you cast your vote, before you pull that lever. And if you've missed any part of today's show, send me an email at info@realestateConnectionRadio.com with your name and email address, and I will add you to my podcast distribution list. And with that, we'll see you on the other side of the break. Okay, folks, it's starting to heat up. We're going to be jumping into the rest of Prop 13 and talk about Prop 19. So I'm just checking my notes here real quick to see where we're going. And with that, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Connection with your radio realtor, Stephen Theard. Hey, we've been talking about property taxes today. That's right, going through the history of Proposition 13. In our next segment, we're also going to be tackling Proposition 19 and how that is going to affect how property taxes are handled within the state of California if it is passed. All right, so we were discussing the 1% tax rate, and if you were listening before, you were asking yourself, hey, Stephen, I'm paying more than 1%. What's going on, brother? And you are, because there are what we call voter approved debt rates that are added to your property taxes. So most tax bills also include additional ad valorem property tax rates to pay for voter approved debt. Revenue from these taxes is used primarily to repay general obligation bonds issued for local infrastructure projects, including the construction and rehabilitation of school facilities. Most local governments must obtain the approval of 2/3 of their local voters in order to issue general obligation bonds repaid with debt rates. So this goes back to, if you're listening to the show and you're wondering, I don't really care if they raise the taxes because I don't own a house, I rent, and so I'm not paying property taxes. Well, this is not necessarily true. The landlord who owns the property that you are renting, when property taxes go up, this increases the expenses that the landlord has to pay on the property that they own. And so what naturally will occur is those increased expenses will be passed down to you, the renter. So it may not be directly being paid by you, but indirectly you will eventually bear the cost of the increase in property taxes as well. So it's very important when you're casting the lever for bond measures to read and make sure that the local community has used the money in the past as they have said they were going to, and that the projects actually get done and improve your local neighborhoods before you approve these bond rates, because they do wind up in your property taxes whether you are a homeowner or not. So this is very important. So, like I said before, we were going to talk about uh, the foundation of Proposition 13. What you may not know is after Prop 13 was passed, there were additional propositions that were passed along the way, which added to Proposition 13. And I'm going to go through those for you real quick so that you understand where we currently sit today and how it relates to our second segment, Proposition 19. Proposition 3, passed in 1982, allows property owners whose property has been taken by eminent domain proceedings to transfer their existing assessed value to a new property of similar size and function. So that was added in 1982. In 1986, Prop 50 allows property owners whose property has been damaged or destroyed in a natural disaster to transfer their existing assessed value to a comparable replacement property within the same county. Remember, Prop 50. Proposition 58 in 1986 excludes property transfers between spouses or between parents and children from triggering reassessment. Prop 60 in 1986 allows homeowners over the age of 55 to transfer their existing assessed value to a new home of equal or lesser market value within the same county. Proposition 90 extends Prop 60 by allowing homeowners to transfer their existing assessed value to a new home of equal or lesser market value in a different participating county. Okay, so basically, if counties agree to have reciprocity with each other, which I believe there are 11 counties that do currently in the state of California, you can move your property tax base in those within those participating counties if you're 55 and over. And oh, by the way, if you just joined the show and you've missed any part of today's content, send me an email at info@realestateconnectionradio.com. That's info@realestateconnectionradio.com with your name and email address, and I'll add you to my podcast distribution list. And I think you're going to want a copy of today's show. It's very important. In Proposition 110 in 1990, it allows disabled homeowners to transfer their existing assessed value from an existing home to a newly purchased home of equal or lesser market value. In 1988, let's go to 1993, Proposition 171 extends Proposition 50 by allowing property owners affected by a natural disaster to transfer their existing assessed value to a comparable replacement property to a different participating county. Okay, so that's already in place. And in Prop 193 in 1996, it excludes property transfers between grandparents and grandchildren when the parents are deceased from triggering reassessment. So this brings us to Proposition 19 in our second segment. And unfortunately, it's taken so long to go through Prop 13, and currently where we stand, it's hard. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to do my best to get through it. So now that you have a good understanding of how property is taxed in California and how Proposition 13 rules the day, let's turn to Proposition 19. Proposition 19 is on the ballot in November. Proposition 19 proposes to change the California Constitution in the following ways. Allows a person 55 and over to transfer their property tax base for a primary residence anywhere in the state 3 times. So now it automatically sticks in all 58 counties in the state of California for anyone 55 and over to transfer their property tax base for their property anywhere in the state. This would also expand to severely disabled victims of natural disasters or hazardous waste contamination. Now, my argument with that is we already have that codified in Proposition 50 and Proposition 60, and also in Proposition 193 passed in 1996. All this does is expands all of that into all all 58 counties. All right. The transfers. Okay. Also, the proposition would allow a grandparent or a parent or grandparent to transfer the property tax base to a child or grandchild if the grandparent sells or transfers the property to a grandchild only if they move into the property as a primary residence. So this is my rub with Prop 19. It takes away what's already been put in place by Proposition 50 and Proposition 171. It actually pulls back what the voters wanted in place back in those years to expand Proposition 13. It limits it and removes those protections. Now it says in order for you to exclude that tax base from going up, the child or the grandchild has to move into the residence as its primary residence. So how many of you out there are grown adult children and already own your primary residence? And so if your parents pass away and you inherit the house, it would not be your primary residence. You may choose to use it as an investment vehicle. This would take away the tax break that was passed by the voters in previous years and rescind it and require you to move into that property. Okay. The transfers include voluntary, court ordered, or judicial decree. The ballot measure would also apply these rules to certain farms. So now it's going to affect the ability for these for farms, family farms, as you read the definition, which I encourage you to do, certain farms to be transferred and not avoid the increase in the tax base. And sometimes those increases can be so significant that the children can't afford to keep the property, and then you'd be forced to sell your parents or grandparents' property, not keep it in the family or the farms. So this is a rollback of what was codified by the voters in prior propositions that added to Proposition 13. And I think it's important for you to understand that in exchange for being able to move your property tax base 3 times anywhere in the state of California, if you're 55 and over, you're also giving away some of the protections that the citizens of the state of California voted for in the past to allow you to take advantage of, so that you don't lose your parents' or grandparents' primary residence should you inherit it, or they give it to you or transfer it to you in another way, shape, or form. So we're running up on a hard break. When we get back, we'll get into more details of Prop 19, and we'll see you in a minute. Okay, that's a little bit on Prop 19. So we're going to run through a little bit more of this, and hopefully you get a better understanding about what's going on with the proposition. So we're going to continue the show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Connection with your radio realtor, Stephen Theard. Hey, in this final segment, we're talking about Proposition 19. And if you've missed any part of what I've discussed earlier and you'd like to know, which I think you're going to want to, send me an email at info@realestateconnectionradio.com. That's INFO at realestateconnectionradio.com with your name and email address. And I'll be happy to send you a link of today's show, or just add you to my podcast distribution list so you can receive these shows without having to lift a finger. If you'd like to go out and find me today, currently, you can find the Real Estate Connection on Apple Podcasts and Podbean. Now, back into Proposition 19. So, in exchange for being able for a person who's 55 and over, or you, if you are 55 and over, to move your property tax base to anywhere within the 58 counties in the state of California 3 times, included in Prop 19 is a rollback of some protections that the voters already passed back in the day. For Proposition 50 in 1986, it allows property owners whose property has, oh, I'm sorry, um, Proposition 58, I'm sorry, in 1986 excludes property transfers between spouses or between parents and children from triggering reassessment. And then in Proposition 193 in 1996, it excludes property transfers between grandparents and grandchildren when the parents are deceased from triggering reassessment. Now, with Proposition 19, this changes those two propositions passed by the voters of the state of California, and now the children or the grandchildren have to move into these inherited properties or received properties or transferred properties, move into them as their primary residence, or they will not have be sheltered from an increase in the base year of those properties. That's a hefty exchange for being able to transfer your home being 55 and over um, in this proposition. Additionally, there's no guarantee within this as well, because if the base year is, there's a calculation that is involved into this proposition as well that involves $1 million number. And if you move into the house and you run through this calculation and it's higher than what's outlined within the details, which I'm not going to have time to go through, you could potentially still see an increase in the base year of the house, that even if you move into it. And in the Bay Area, it's really easy to get up to $1 million increase in the base year. Now, if you want more details about how the calculation actually works, I have run through the numbers, but it's too complicated to go through on the radio and to go through right now. You can call me at 408-472-0817. Again, 408-472-0817. As it sits for me right now, I think the exchange is too high. The voters spent a lot of time and money and energy and effort in order to protect families to be able to transfer or to inherit principal residences, and additionally, on top of that, the first $1 million of other properties. So if your parents were trying to create wealth for your family and they had other properties, other rental properties, there is a protection there as well that I believe is rolled back in this proposition, Proposition 19. I encourage you to go out and read it. Go out onto a website called Ballotpedia, and they have a good breakdown of Prop 19. For me, I do think the exchange is kind of high, and that's my personal opinion. I invite you to develop your own. So with that being said, hey, the market is really hot in real estate still. Their houses are being sold like crazy, and that's just the way of life as we see it today. And in regards to taxes, I have a tip of the day concerning taxes. It's from Mark 12:17. Then Jesus said to them, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." And they were amazed. So pay your taxes because it belongs to the federal government and the state government. With that, God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you for joining me on the Real Estate Connection, and we will see you all next week. And if you want to work with your radio realtor, give me a call. Stephen Theard, 408-472-0817. Take care, you guys, and that's it. I'm out. Bye-bye. Okay, that's it for today's show. Hey, Don, thanks for joining me today. I just wanted to get the facts out on Prop 19, and there is a hefty exchange between the transfer of the 55 and over ability to go between to transfer it 3 times anywhere in the county. In exchange for that, we're giving up some protections that the voters voted for and passed, the citizens of the state of California, which I believe waters down Proposition 13 as it stands today. So that's my humble opinion. Others may view it may think that it's worth it, but that's the wonderful thing about the United States of America is we are allowed to voice our opinions, and we can be agreed with or disagreed with, but it doesn't change the fact that we're all citizens of the most free country in the world. So thank you very much for joining me today. God bless you guys. Prayers go out to the people of Mexico who just endured the hurricane. Prayers go out to the people of the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, where it's headed next. And we're praying for a change of weather, for cooler air and more fog to roll through for those people up in Napa County that are experiencing the fires. And if and, and that's it. I'm trying to say too much. I'm just going to go now. Thank you to everybody for joining me today. All right, you guys. Take care, and we'll see you later. All right. God bless. Bye-bye.